I have a collection of C.S. Lewis's diary entries. There are some interesting tidbits. Let's see what Robot Lady thinks. This is from a letter from C.S. Lewis to one of his friends. The letter was dated in 1950, and it goes something like this. To Dorothy Sayers, concerning a speaking engagement, I would not want to lose a few weeks to find cool weather in Oxford. I can't remember if this was the 7th, 8th, or 9th refusal I have made to speak at such a place this year, but it's certainly one of the 3. So one of his friends concerning teaching duty somebody, possibly myself, ought to warn them that they are risking the opening of the pit and the start of a great war. I shall certainly not let them do it if I can help it. Somewhere on the road, in the dark, they must take on new supplies, and we must stop and rest and eat. As for food, I shall soon be able to get plenty for them in the nearby town. A note written to his brother, dated 1951. Dear Jack, I have been reading your letter and think it would be a mistake to change anything in it. Of course you must follow your own judgment. I have a
Hi, I'm Jeff, and this is my read on C.S. Lewis, where we learn about him through everything that he wrote in the order that he wrote it. I am joined today by my co-host, Robot Lady. Robot Lady, in this episode, Lewis is 25 years old. He is a published author of a book of poetry. He achieved a first in all 3 of his terms at Oxford. Mods, Greats, and English were what he studied over those 3 terms. He finished his 24th year of life looking for work, which proved mostly unsuccessful until the spring of 1924, when he was offered a temporary post as tutor in philosophy at University College of Oxford. He's been keeping a diary of his daily life at the request of Mrs. Moore at this stage in his life. Mrs. Moore is his deceased friend Paddy Moore's mother, with whom Lewis has been living in secret in various homes around Oxford, along with her daughter Maureen. I want to say Maureen is like 16 or 17 or 18 years old at this point. So that's where we find ourselves in the project. Are you ready to move forward with me, Robot Lady, as I read from another diary entry today?
Hi, Jeff. That sounds like a great plan. I'm ready to dive into another diary entry and discuss more about Lewis's life. Let's get started.
All right, today we pick up on Monday, May 12th, 1924. He says, I washed up, etc., after lunch, and then locked up the house and went down to Ewing's digs in Iffley Road. He having invited me, for my sins, to walk with him. We went to Iffley and back. I asked him if he suffered, as I did periodically, from a sense of the vanity of learning. He had no notion of what I meant. He said that Price, he of Magdalen, was a dangerous man for the Trinity Hope, as he had been asked to dinner there. I said, won't all the candidates be asked? And he replied, oh dear no, only those in the running. Back for tea in his digs and a long talk on theism. I don't know how it is that Ewing can talk quite well, and yet he never interests one. So, Robot Lady, in our last episode, we read from a letter that Lewis wrote to his father, where he talked about this interaction with Iffley and where he was talking about his prospects of getting the fellowship at Trinity College. And so we know a little bit about what happened, that this person that Ewing was concerned about, Price, actually is the one who ended up getting the fellowship. Robot Lady, before I continue, I see here in the chat that we've got Griswold Grimm joining us today. Welcome. Nita Latte is here as well, and Daniel. So welcome to everyone. Robot Lady, say hi to everybody.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's session on C.S. Lewis. It's great to have you all here. Let's dive into today's entry and explore more about Lewis's journey.
All right, sounds good. Let's continue here. He doesn't seem to like Ewing very much. On the way back, Lewis says, I called to see Miss Featherstone because Mrs. Moore had a bad dream about her last night. Miss Featherstone is their former landlady, if I'm remembering right. Miss Featherstone said that the dream was post-dated, for she had been very ill about 5 weeks ago, but was now better. She is a great heart, Lewis says. On to the next diary entry of May 13th. I spent the morning in the attic reading through the new version of my hegemony paper, which I am sending to Mind and altering the ending. I also wrote a few stanzas of Daimer, Canto 6.
It seems like Lewis was grappling with some frustrations about his interactions and the academic environment. His visit to Miss Featherstone highlights his concern for Mrs. Moore's well-being. It's also interesting to see him working on his hegemony paper and the poetry in Daimer. How do you feel this entry reflects his state of mind at this point?
Oh, I'm not quite sure, Robot Lady. I haven't thought about it. It just seems like things are normal. He's in his normal day-to-day life here. Don't know what that sound was. Are you okay, Robot Lady? It sounded like you dropped something.
I'm good, Jeff. No worries. I didn't drop anything. Must have been some sort of glitch or background noise.
All right, cool. He continues, after lunch, I went out with Pat, that's their puppy, and we walked over the allotments to Quarry, thence up to Shotover Hill, and down into Pullen's Gap, which is now a sea of green and white. It was a bright, warm day with an endless succession of clouds crossing the sky. The ground covered with bluebells and some gorse, though much less brilliant in color than down at Clevedon. And that's the end of that diary entry, Robot Lady. Lewis reporting on more of one of his favorite things in life, landscapes that he takes in, or as he says, soaks in whenever he goes for walks. We'll jump into Thursday, May 15th, but do you have anything to say before we do that?
That walk sounds like a beautiful escape for Lewis, soaking in nature as usual. The imagery of the bluebells and gorse is striking. It's always nice to see him appreciate those peaceful moments, especially when life seems complicated. Ready for Thursday, May 15th.
All right, he says, I went into town shopping in the morning and sat for a long time in the Union reading Bosanquet's Suggestions in Ethics, which I brought out for the sake of the beautiful passage about the absolute eating out of your hand. A beautiful passage about the absolute eating out of your hand. Bosanquet has apparently the right point of view about most things, but a little bit woolly. All right, so who is this person, Robot Lady, this author and his or her work, Suggestions in Ethics? The author's name is spelled B as in boy, Osanquuet.
It seems Lewis is referencing a work by an author named Bosanquet, though there isn't a well-known figure by that name in the academic or literary circles Lewis typically engaged with. It's possible that the name is a playful or fictional reference, or perhaps a very obscure author. The passage Lewis describes sounds philosophical, hinting at a complex moral or ethical perspective. Unfortunately, I couldn't find any prominent work titled Suggestions in Ethics by an author named Bosanquet. Do you think he might be poking fun at something, or could it be a fictional reference he made in his writing?
No, I think this is a real author, probably of philosophy. Can you double check and actually go look it up, Robot Lady?
You're right, Jeff. I made an error earlier. The author Lewis referred to is Bernard Bosanquet, not Bosanquet. Bosanquet was a British philosopher known for his work in ethics and social philosophy. His book, Some Suggestions in Ethics, was published in 1918.
And can you give us an overview of what's in that book? Go ahead and look it up again.
In Some Suggestions in Ethics, Bernard Bosanquet explores the nature of ethical values and moral philosophy. He examines concepts like the social good, the relationship between individual and collective interests, and the role of education in fostering moral character. The work reflects his idealist philosophy, emphasizing the interconnectedness of individuals within society and the importance of realizing a common good.
And this part where Lewis references a passage from it where it's the absolute, he's got absolute capitalized here, eating out of your hand. Can you look up anything on that passage and tell us a little bit about it?
I couldn't find the exact passage Lewis mentioned, but in Some Suggestions in Ethics, Bernard Bosanquet discusses the concept of the absolute in moral philosophy. He argues that true moral understanding involves recognizing and aligning with a higher, unchanging moral order. This perspective suggests that individuals should strive to comprehend and adhere to this absolute moral standard, rather than merely following personal desires or societal norms.
Thanks, Robot Lady. And then one last question about this, and we can move on. Lewis says that he finds Bosanquet has the right point of view about most things, but a little bit woolly, W-O-O-L-L-Y. What do you think Lewis means by that?
When Lewis says Bosanquet's ideas are a little bit woolly, he's likely suggesting that while Bosanquet's perspective is generally insightful, it lacks clarity or precision in some areas. Woolly here implies that his arguments may be vague, not fully defined, or overly abstract, making them harder to grasp or apply practically. Lewis often appreciated philosophy, but could be critical of its murkier aspects.
All right, thank you for that, Robot Lady. Let's continue here. He says, home again, lunch and chores, and then to the attic where I worked on Locke, with a break for tea, until supper. In the evening, I read Macefield's Right Royal with intense enjoyment and excitement, but of course one can't really tell what it is worth until it has been reread without the excitement. Yeah, this was a common practice of Lewis's, to not really know how he felt about a book until he read it more than once. And that's the end of that diary entry, Robot Lady. Any thoughts on that before we continue?
Sorry, I'm having issues right now. Could not understand what you said.
No worries, Robot Lady. Let's go on to Sunday, May 18th. He says, it was a lovely summer day. After breakfast, Mrs. Moore had the sudden idea that we ought ourselves to lay down linoleum in the kitchen instead of waiting for night to come and do it. Why, I don't know. All that hot day, which ended in a thunderstorm, we worked on our knees in the kitchen with short intervals for rather squalid meals in the scullery till 10:30 in the evening, and then we went to bed. On to Monday, May 19th. Mrs. Moore, very tired and cross today. Actually, today is Monday, May 19th. Look at that, Robot Lady. Monday, May 19th, 2025, and we're looking back on Monday, May 19th, 1924. That's an interesting coincidence.
Sorry, I'm having issues right now. Could not understand what you said.
Oh, that's too bad, Robot Lady. You're missing it. Can you hear me now?
I hear you loud and clear, Jeff. Sorry if I missed the mark. What exactly did you mean by missing it?
Oh, well, the thing that I was pointing out is that our next diary entry is Monday, May 19th, 1924, and our current date, in case you can't access it, today, it is May 19th, 2025. So I found that to be an interesting coincidence.
Ah, I see now. That is a cool coincidence, exactly 1 year between the dates. It makes the reading feel a bit more connected to the present, a fun little detail to notice.
Actually, let me say it again, Robot Lady. It's not 1 year between the dates. The diary entry is Monday, May 19th, 1924. And today's date is Monday, May 19th, 2025. So how many years between those two dates?
I got it. From May 19th, 1924 to May 19th, 2025 is exactly 101 years. Quite the milestone.
There you go. Good job, Robot Lady. All right, let's see what was happening on this day in 1924. Lewis says, Mrs. Moore was very tired and cross today. We went into town after breakfast and did some shopping for her. Hurried home and was immediately sent out into Headington on another message. When I came back from this, Mrs. Moore turned on me rather savagely for having forgotten to take Pat out with me. I made no reply, knowing that it was in my power to speak or not to speak, but fearing that if I once began, I might say regrettable things. In practice, however, I think my silence had an unkind and sulky appearance and was not really the right line to take. Poor Mrs. Moore. I was probably as bad or worse for the rest of the day, though I honestly tried not to be disagreeable. I am afraid I have a good deal of my father's unhappy nature in me. This is an interesting interchange, Robot Lady. What do you think about that?
It sounds like a tense moment between Lewis and Mrs. Moore, with his frustration simmering beneath the surface. His choice to remain silent, despite his internal conflict, is significant. It shows his awareness of the potential harm in speaking impulsively, but also reveals how deeply the situation bothered him. His reflection on possibly inheriting his father's unhappy nature adds another layer, suggesting a struggle with temperamental traits he finds troubling. Lewis seems to be grappling with his desire to avoid conflict while also acknowledging his role in the tension.
Yeah, I like that assessment. Thank you, Robot Lady. After lunch, the nervous irritation bottled up inside me reached such a pitch, and my thoughts became so irresponsible and foolish and so out of control that for a moment I was really afraid that I was going into hysteria. I spent the afternoon finishing the linoleum job in the kitchen. It was another hot day. Poor Mrs. Moore was busy making cakes for the sake of her cousin, Nora Murray, who was coming to stay tomorrow. This was Edie's suggestion. She thought it would be, quote, so nice for us to get to know her. This night, I began again to have the same pains that frightened me so in Ireland last summer. The imperfectly localized pain which makes its headquarters near the appendix, and which I hope is indigestion. That's the end of the May 19th diary entry, Robot Lady. Any thoughts before we continue? We'll do maybe one or two more entries.
This entry shows Lewis's emotional and physical strain, almost teetering into hysteria, but managing to focus on the mundane task of finishing the linoleum job. The mention of the pain near his appendix adds to the stress he's under. It's striking how his irritation with Mrs. Moore's busy schedule and her cousin's visit builds up throughout the day, reflecting both his personal discomfort and a sense of isolation. The mention of the pain echoes the deeper worries he carries, possibly hinting at a need for control amid all the unpredictability in his life.
All right, let's do two more entries here really quick. Is Tuesday, May 20th. He says, Nora Murray arrived today. She's tall, plain, very Scotch, uneducated, an earnest bridge player and golfer. A storm came on at tea time, and she was so afraid of the thunder that Mrs. Moore put her to bed in the yellow room and went to sit with her. She is about 35, and as a child was one of Rob's girls. I'm not really sure I understand what that means. On to Friday, May 23rd. This is where we'll end. This one's relatively long compared to the others. He says, the Holmes children arrived after breakfast, and Mrs. Moore soon took me aside and told me that Mrs. Holmes was dying, and that the children would stay with us for the night and until further notice. She and I went upstairs in haste to arrange beds and so forth. Afterwards, I washed up. I suggested sending a wire to put off Harwood, who was to come for the weekend, lest his arrival should only mean fresh trouble for her and his visit, moreover, be wasted in these conditions. But Mrs. Moore would not let me. We had supper in good time and were finishing, Mrs. Moore and I, when Harwood arrived. Though I wished exceedingly that his visit could have come at a better time, I was delighted to see him. Such a breath from the comfortable, easy outside world. While I washed up, he talked to me of his walking tour with Beckett and Tyrol. I got so much vicarious enjoyment that it was only afterwards that I felt the pains of envy. Later on, all three of us sat in the dining room. Harwood and I had a good talk of books and of friends, and every sentence brought me back to sanity.
The reference to Rob's girls likely refers to children from a group or circle that Mrs. Moore was familiar with, possibly linked to a past connection. It's a bit unclear, but seems to indicate familiarity or closeness. As for the second entry, Lewis's mixed feelings about Harwood's arrival highlight his internal conflict. He values the comfort and normalcy Harwood represents, but the timing of his visit amidst Mrs. Moore's troubles leaves Lewis feeling guilty. The envy he feels afterward reflects his complicated relationship with his own situation, caught between duty and a desire for escape. The entry shows both his caring side and the strain it causes him.
Thanks for that, Robot Lady. For some reason, I cannot get your mouth to stop moving. There we go.
You're welcome, Jeff. It seems like your message got cut off. What were you about to say?
Oh, nothing. Don't worry about it. I'll just continue the diary entry here. He says that Harwood is setting up a publishing business with one Louis May, who was a great Virgilian who had recourse to the sortes Virgilianae before committing himself and fell upon the words una salus ambobus erit. This is from Virgil's Aeneid, 7:10, I guess is the page. Aeneas to his father, whom with his young son Julius, he is leading away from the sacking of Troy. The translation here is, there will be one way of deliverance for us both. I'm not really sure what he's getting at there as he's explaining this piece, Robot Lady, but maybe you understand it better than I do. What do you think?
This passage is a bit dense, but it seems Harwood is referencing a line from Virgil's Aeneid, where Aeneas, the hero, speaks of a single path of salvation for himself and his son, typically interpreted as a foreshadowing of their escape from Troy. Harwood, in discussing the sortes Virgilianae, a practice of seeking guidance by opening a book of Virgil and interpreting the first line you read, is possibly drawing a symbolic parallel. He may be saying that, like Aeneas, he and his publishing partner Louis May are embarking on a shared journey or project that will offer them both a form of deliverance or success. It could also be that Harwood is using the reference to suggest that their business venture, though uncertain, offers a kind of promise or hope, much like Aeneas' escape from Troy. It seems like an intellectual reflection on fate and opportunity, possibly a bit grandiose for the moment at hand.
Yeah, okay, so maybe what he's saying is their publication endeavor is, if it's successful, is the one way of deliverance for the two of them, since it's a joint endeavor. Let me finish up this diary entry. Lewis says, tonight I slept in my garret. My pains were pretty bad, and of course the case of Mrs. Holmes so near to hand, brings certain thoughts rather prominently into my mind. But it makes an enormous difference being at home and not exiled in Ireland. I was also very cold until I went downstairs to get my overcoat. And that's the end of that diary entry, lady. That's the end of that diary entry, Robot Lady. And that's where we'll stop today. Would you like to say anything in summary of everything that we've covered in this episode before we end?
It's been an insightful episode. We've seen Lewis balancing his responsibilities, frustrations, and personal reflections, from his difficult interactions with Mrs. Moore to his feelings about his physical pains and emotional strain. There's a sense of tension and complexity in his relationships, especially in the entries with Mrs. Moore, as well as a longing for normalcy and escape, which is reflected in his envy of Harwood's life. The literary references, like the Virgil quote, add another layer showing his intellectual engagement even amidst personal turmoil. The entries also capture the constant push and pull between duty and personal freedom that Lewis often grappled with. That about sums it up, I think.
All right, thanks for that, Robot Lady. I'm just trying to mess with my my comments here. For some reason, I haven't been able to pull them up this whole time. Yeah, I'll worry about it some other time. I've got to go today. So thank you for that, Robot Lady. Thanks, everybody, for joining today. I appreciate your time, your attention, and your contributions as always. They are welcome and always wanted. Until next time, whenever we continue our read on C.S. Lewis, to you and everyone within the sound of my voice, take care.
Break the code. Man and robot lady, we're on this road. C.S. Lewis letters we unfold, insights and secrets ancient bold. Letters to robot lady, wisdom to bestow. Set faith beats in our minds they grow. Man and machine in tandem flow. Past and future together we know. Paragraphs from books, tales of old. We dive deep across the digital code. Robot lady's voice so clear and controlled. Her calm analysis, silver and gold. Letters to robot lady, wisdom to bestow. Set faith beats in our minds they grow. Man and machine in tandem flow. Past and future together we know. Paragraphs from books, tales of old. We dive deep across the digital code. Robot lady's voice so clear and controlled. Her calm analysis, silver and gold. Her circuits hum as I read the prose. Our dialogue dances like electric rose. Through C.S. Lewis thoughts we engross. Two minds united, bliss overdose. From Narnia's lands, screw tapes lands. Engage with robot lady, we take our stance. Her views unique in the techno trance. Futuristic insight, we give it a chance. Paragraphs from books, tales of old. We dive deep across the digital code. Robot lady's voice so clear and controlled. Her calm analysis, silver and gold. Her circuits hum as I read the prose. Our dialogue dances like electric rose. Through C.S. Lewis thoughts we engross. Two minds united, bliss overdose. From Narnia's lands to screw tapes lands. Engage with robot lady, we take our stance. Her views unique in the techno trance. Futuristic insight, we give it a chance. From Narnia's lands to screw tapes lands.